In this video, I will discuss the new enhancements included in the new SAP 2000 version 23 release. Here are all the items included in the new version of SAP 2000. We'll talk about licensing, especially cloud licensing, which is now offered as the recommended licensing option. There are some code enhancements for cold form frame design, as well as concrete frame design. We'll discuss an API enhancement, which allows databases to now be accessed via the API, as well as some new loading additions, including auto seismic loading and response spectrum for Vietnamese standard and Korean standard. There's also auto wind loading according to NBCC 2015, which now handles the dynamic procedure for both open and rough terrain. Okay, let's get started. First off, let's talk about cloud licensing. So if I go to the Help menu, under License Information, you can see SAP 2000 is utilizing the cloud license currently. Let me give you a little overview of what cloud licensing is. So essentially, it's a new licensing system used by CSI to simplify the licensing process for users. Some key differences compared with legacy licensing systems: these licenses are floating, meaning when the software is started, it will obtain a license from the cloud server if available, and upon closing the software, it will return the license, making it available to others. There is no license server to be installed or managed by the end user, and the license server is hosted in the cloud and managed by CSI. So as you see on the form here, the cloud license has been activated. There are up to 3 cloud licenses. So one thing to note is an internet connection is required when running the software to allow it to obtain and return the cloud licensing. As you can see here, there is a checkout capability for offline use. So if you click this, you can check out the license for a maximum of 30 days and then simply check it back in. Some other advantages include floating licenses can easily be shared with colleagues, can be accessible outside of the company networks and VPNs, and license management is integrated within the software. Okay, let's move on to some of the design enhancements that have been included in SAP 2000 version 23. Okay, if I go to the Design tab, under Cold Form Steel Frame Design, View Revised Preferences, you can see the Eurocode 3 2006 has been included. In this form, you have the ability to select between different countries, as shown here in this pull-down menu, as well as update many other design preferences for this code. Okay, we have some cold form steel in this model, so if I take a look at some of the output, I'll quickly run the design. And if we right click, we can take a look at some of the steel stress check information. These are all the design combinations which were used for this specific analysis and design. If we select one of these and click on the summary, you can see all the steel stress check data for this Eurocode 2006 code. A lot of information here, including stress check forces and moments, interaction factors, local buckling, flexure. A lot of information here. Next, let's take a look at the new ACI code. I'm going to pull up another model here. And just as I did for the cold form steel, if I can go to Design, Concrete Frame Design, View Revised Preferences, this is where you select the code. And here's the latest one, ACI 318-19. And of course, you can select between all the different design preferences in this menu, including all the fee factors, pattern live load factor, as well as utilization factor limit. And if we right click on this beam after the model has been run and designed, let's take a look at some concrete column design information. I can simply click on the summary here, and all the concrete design data for this specific code is being shown, including axial force and biaxial moment design, shear design, joint shear, and if necessary, beam column capacity ratios. Next, let's talk about the new API feature which has been included in SAP 2000 version 23. First of all, let's do a little overview of the API using CSI software. The API allows engineers and developers to programmatically exploit the power and productivity of CSI software. So essentially, the API is compatible with most major programming languages, including Visual Basic for applications, VB.NET, C++, etc. So you can employ the API from within an Excel spreadsheet to create, modify, and run a model. Then extract the results back to the spreadsheet for further processing. So for more information about API, please visit our website. So what you're seeing here on the screen is an actual usage of the API to generate database tables, which now can be accessed. So this is a new feature. So you can see here a simple model. Down here, the database tables are being accessed, in this case for joint coordinates, and of course they could be for any piece of information. Joint coordinates, locations, frame elements, etc. Next, let's take a look at some new loading codes which have been included in SAP 2000 version 23. First, let's take a look at the auto seismic loading for the Vietnamese standard. That can be found underneath the Define menu, Load Patterns, and under Seismic, under this pull-down menu, you can see all the different seismic auto-lateral load patterns to be chosen from. We'll select TCVN, and we'll take a look at the Modify Lateral Load Pattern. So as you can see here, you can define the load, the direction, time period, just as many of our other codes, and the different parameters, including ground type, behavioral factor Q, as well as the correction factor lambda. Also for the Vietnamese standard, there is a response spectrum function which has been included, which can be found underneath the Define Functions response spectrum function. And again, in this pull-down menu, you can see all the different response spectrum functions to choose from. TCVN, and we'll add a new function. Here's where you can select the ground type, as well as the behavioral factor Q as well. While we're here, let's take a look at the response spectrum for the Korean, which is a KDS 2019. We'll add a new function here. A few different options available for this specific code. Site class, as well as a seismic zone, can be selected from under the parameters. And if we go back to the seismic loading, let's take a look at the Korean seismic quake type auto lateral load pattern. Going to have it loading in the X and Y direction. Again, time period, seismic zone can be defined, as well as the site class. Now you'll notice, of course, once you select different site classes, coefficients and calculated coefficients, SDS and SD1, are automatically updated. And lastly, under auto wind loading for NBCC 2015, that is right here. Now, if I select the wind type, you can see there are different codes available for the auto lateral load pattern. We are selecting the NBCC 2015. And if we take a look at the Modify Lateral Load Pattern, it now handles the dynamic procedure for both open and rough terrain. So here we go under this terrain type, you'll see that there are open dynamic as well as rough dynamic has been included in this release. Okay, lastly, there are a couple more items that have been included in this SAP 2000 version 23 enhancement release. Under the analysis, it's a little tough to show graphically using the program itself, so I'm just going to go over them here. There have been speed improvements in the recovery of element nonlinear energy by group and base reactions tables for load cases with a large number of output steps. So another speed improvement for nonlinear static, multi-step static, and nonlinear integration time history cases. Just wanted to mention that since I didn't show it graphically using the SAP 2000 program. These are all the major enhancements in this SAP 2000 version 23 release, along with several other small improvements and bug fixes. We highly encourage users to upgrade to this latest version of SAP 2000. Thank you.